I think Bakugo might be one of the best written rivals since Vegeta. Yeah, I know you just disliked the video and clicked off, but stop. Stay right here. I am about to piss some people off, and this might be a bit of a glaze sesh, but it's okay. And you know what? I get it. The show is not perfect, but if you are still acting like it's some mid-tier shonen anime, then you either dropped it way too early, or you are willing to die on a hill of lies. Spoiler alert for everything up to season 7. As a kid, I was always obsessed with animated DC movies, animated Marvel movies pre-MCU. Back in the day, that was my bread and butter. It's all I used to watch, and obviously the animes that came on TV when I was a kid. And then when I truly got into watching anime and I heard of this show, I was like, fuck, that's right up my alley. I'm gonna give it a chance. I enjoyed it a lot. It wasn't like one of my favorites in any way, but I did thoroughly enjoy watching it. I did notice that it was flawed, especially when we got to the midpoint, like season 3, season 4. There was a little bit of a blip there on the hype of the show. I was like, some of these arcs are a bit boring, is what it is. Then we got to seasons 5, 6, and 7, especially 6 and 7. Those seasons are damn near perfect, and I'm so obsessed with the show now because of how good the last 2 seasons have been, and season 5, I guess. Even season 1, 2, 3, and 4 had moments that I was like, this is so hyped, this is super emotional. But the last 2 or 3 seasons amplify that by 100. And then I was recently watching the latest episode of Vigilantes, the spin-off series, and that's what motivated me to make this video, because I truly think it's overhated. Like, yeah, sure, it follows the standard blueprint of a shonen anime, but it isn't just another kid wants to be the best story. It's deeper than that. It's more like what it really means to be a hero when the world stops believing in heroes, and I think that's cool. It's a lot darker than the show is visually presented to us. For instance, All Might's fall, Endeavor's redemption, Deku slowly losing himself, society literally crumbling. That's not just surface level storytelling, and especially when it comes to All Might. All Might's final battle with All For One at Kamino Ward isn't just a turning point for the plot, it's literally a turning point for the world within that story. That moment where he throws the last punch and says, "This is your last," is super iconic, but it's actually what follows that really matters. When he lifts his arm and he points to the camera and he says, "You're next." You know the scene. It looks like a victory, but it's really just a public goodbye. The world doesn't see a win. It sees the symbol of peace that they once knew as an exhausted and finished skeletal version of himself. When All Might was in his prime, in his heyday, prime was low, but not because villains were gone, but because they were shit scared of him. And the public didn't feel safe because the hero system was flawless. They felt safe because All Might was around. And this also leads to a very important question. Was All Might actually a bad hero for being the lone symbol of peace and for being leagues ahead of any other hero? Because his reign obviously only could have lasted so long before he retired. But when he was in his heyday, he didn't really put any measures in place for when he retired. Like the previous owners of One For All, they all had understudies. He never did. He pretty much just picked Deku right at the end and threw him in the deep end. So yeah, there's questions to be asked about how good All Might's impact was. It might have been great in his heyday, but he definitely set up the world for failure when he left. You see? Great storytelling. Once he's gone, cracks start to show. Villains get bolder, fear spreads, the illusion of peace just evaporates overnight. You literally see normal civilians preparing to defend themselves. People begin to question the system. Groups like the Meta Liberation Army and the League of Villains gain traction because they fill the ideological void that All Might left behind. Even heroes like Endeavor, who steps up to take the top spot, are met with doubt and not celebration, which is kind of fucked. The new world number 1 is just so far behind the old world number 1 that people are like, shit, do we celebrate? I don't have faith in this guy. He's strong, sure, but he's not All Might. For Deku, it's similar to losing a parent, even though he does still have All Might in his life and the world doesn't. But he doesn't have that All Might. This emotional fallout is what makes Deku's Vigilante arc and Endeavor's redemption arc that much sweeter and that much better in season 6. The latter half of the show is everyone redefining what a hero is because the old definition died with All Might, and that's why season 5, 6, and 7 are so fucking good. Let's talk about pacing, because I've seen some people critique the pacing, and I will admit it's not flawless. We'll be honest, season 1 is a bit slow. It does take some time to build the world, but that investment pays off so well. Seasons 3 and 4 probably have some of the weakest arcs in the Forest Training Camp arc and the Festival arc, which are both fun arcs and good arcs, but they have shit components, like Gentle Criminal, for example. But still, the setup that those arcs create is super vital. You need those arcs to make arcs like Camino Ward, the Overhaul arc, and the War arc hit that much deeper and harder. Plus, how can you hate the beginning of the show when we get a training arc, an entrance exam arc, and a tournament arc all in the first 2 seasons? Man, that show spoiled us with the best of the tropes. Now let's take a look at character development. This is where I feel the show really deserves its flowers. If there's anything that stands out in this show, it's the fucking character development. Deku has pretty average or pretty standard character growth, should I say. But I do think it's done really well. He starts as a crybaby fanboy of All Might and other heroes, but like a typical shonen MC, his determination does push him forward. What takes away from the standard shonen MC development of Deku though is his growth is a lot messier, and obviously we get the vigilante version of Deku in season 6, which is so sick, and then we get the old version back in season 7, but he's a lot more mature, he's way stronger, and he feels similar to All Might in a way where you're like, fuck, we need Deku here to stop Shigaraki. So, standard shonen development done in a really cool way. Todoroki's character development's also really good. His identity begins with being this traumatized boy living in his father's shadow, being abused by his parents. Well, his father, he's got a scar from what his mother did to him when she lost her mind. And it's really easy to see him as the stoic, cool character, but his internal battle's really deep. As the show goes on, he learns to live beyond his trauma, and not just as a way to reject his father, but by forging his own path. His subtle growth throughout the show is so quietly done, but done really well, especially when we get to the final battle between him and Darby. Also, I called that spoiler, that Darby was his brother. And then we look at Bakugo. This is going to be a really hot take, and I'm going to piss some people off. I think Bakugo might be one of the best written rivals, if not the best, since Vegeta. Yeah, I know you just disliked the video and clicked off, but stop. Stay right here. He stands out as one of the best because his growth isn't driven by revenge or jealousy like a lot of rivals are, but it's rather driven by insecurity and guilt, which at the start of the show you would have never guessed because he was this loud, brazen bully who was uber confident, had a sick quirk, top of his class in academics and physical tests. He was just sick. But as Deku, the person he bullied, surpasses him, it eats away at Bakugo. His character arc is all about realizing that his self-worth isn't tied to being the strongest or to being a genius or being the #1 hero, but it's rather tied to respecting others and himself. When he apologizes to Deku, bro, I welled up so hard, especially when we learn that he was as much of an All Might fan as Deku. It really adds another layer to his character, and we see why he hates Deku so much, because obviously All Might's taken Deku under his wing. Bakugo, originally Bakugo had the quirks to be the next All Might, and this random kid that he hated from school with no quirk suddenly has a cool quirk and is being mentored by Bakugo's idol. And for me, what really takes him to being the best rival since Vegeta, best written rival for Vegeta, is what he does next after his realization, is he starts fighting for Deku, just like Vegeta starts fighting for Goku, and not in a way to outshine him, but in a way to support him. In the fight against Shigaraki, he throws his body in front of Deku's to stop blows to Deku that have the intention of being fatal blows. He takes those to give Deku an opening to attack Shigaraki. He's super selfless. And in season 7, while they're waiting for Deku, he literally 1v1s Shigaraki to the point of death before Edgeshot steps in to save him. But he's super selfless, and he's slowly becoming my favorite character after Aizawa. What a well-written character. And then to top off the character development portion of this video, everyone gets a moment in season 7, which is why I think it's so close to flawless. All these nobodies, or not nobodies, but background characters from class 1A, support students, villains, they all get a moment. Horikoshi really said, you thought I wrote too many characters into the story and I'm not gonna be able to flesh them out? Bet. In season 7, Jiro has her moments fighting against the strongest villain in the show. Like, what? Kaminari, his electric power keeps the arena with Shigaraki afloat. Shoji is probably the best example of getting your moment in season 7. Bro barely had 5 lines throughout the entire series. And then he gets one of the most traumatic backstories fleshed out. And he's such a key figure to suppress the mutant protests. Now, the squashing of the mutant protest, yeah, that was kind of propaganda. And then even Koji in the same protest had a moment. Suddenly his Anna voice quirk was sick as fuck. And then he grew that horn. Damn, that's cool. And then let's not forget the villains as well. Toga, Twice, Spinner. They aren't just evil. They're people broken by the same system that the heroes are fighting to uphold. So there's so many complexities in the story that, yeah, I really don't see how people hate it this much. They surely have not seen season 5, 6, and 7. And then another thing the show does not get enough credit for, and don't worry, I will cover some negative stuff, but this is another underrated part of My Hero. The student-sensei dynamics are so good. Take Aizawa and Deku, for example. Aizawa starts off as this distant, borderline cold teacher to Deku, threatens to expel him for almost nothing. But over time, you notice that he's watching everything Deku does. And when he starts acknowledging Deku, especially for when he saves, forgot the kid's name, but in the training camp arc, and Aizawa acknowledges him, bro, that made me cry. That was the first time I cried during the show, and I was like, fuck, Aizawa's so cool. That's why he became my favorite character. I love a cold sensei that shows emotion. Or that eventually shows emotion, not all the time. I think their relationship is so good. But an even more amplified version of that relationship, of the cold, cool teacher and the student seeking acknowledgement, is Hawks and Tokoyami. Hawks is the nonchalant final boss. At first it feels like it's just grooming Tokoyami to be a good hero. And it's like, oh, we're both birds, so I could teach you well, I guess. But then, in season 6 and 7, oh no, season 5, when Tokoyami saves Hawks from Derby and he starts to open up and acknowledge Tokoyami, you're like, fuck, something's brewing here. Then, in the fight against All For One, Hawks trusts Tokoyami to go toe-to-toe with All For One, and the acknowledgement he gives him then, fuck me, tears, dude. Such a good dynamic. Now, I've seen critiques of the animation of this show, and sure, there's some dull moments, but considering the show's fairly long running, there's not been as many fuck-ups as other shonen that have run for a similar time. And also, there's like peak animation moments. The United States of Smash moment. Deku vs. Overhaul. Such a good fight. And then Class A vs. Deku on the rooftop. Peak cinema. Okay, the part you've all been waiting for. I do have to bring it up. One of the worst fandoms in anime and manga. It can't be denied. I will give you that. Those stinky shippers that forced Deku and Bakugo, forced Bakugo Todoroki, Uraraka, and... Oh, Uraraka also had a really cool moment. Her and Froppy in season 7. Yeah, that was pretty sick. Back to the fans. Yeah, stinky shippers. And especially with the way the manga ended. I won't spoil that, because that was spoiled for me and I'm kind of depressed and suicidal about it. Not actually. The way people reacted to Deku and Bakugo not ending up together is so parasocially stupid. Like, the fact that people read so far and were like, it's gonna happen. They're gonna end up together. I don't get it. And that's not even like a homophobic statement. I would have been completely fine with them ending up together. But there was just no signs of it. So those shippers who went after Horikoshi, idiots. This feels like a negative note to end the video on. Yeah, if you watched this and you haven't seen the show, or you feel like I kind of changed your mind, please give it a shot. It's just so well done. Even the movies, they may not be canon, but the movies are really well done as well. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.